Well, good morning. I'm Dick Brower. I've been doing this probably for 5 or 6 years now. Not great at it, but I've got Jesus in my heart. And I want to start out with a story. Now, I know a couple of you younger farmers won't know this, but talk to George Shipper or somebody like that that's been around even longer than I have, and he can tell you about it. There was a young preacher that went to seminary. After he got through with seminary, of course, he had to go to a church and preach. And after he got through with the sermon, he was all done, and one of the elder pastors had come up and said to him, "Son, why did you get into ministry?" And he said, "Well, sir, it's like this." He said, "I was out cultivating corn, plowing corn." He said, "You know those cultivator shields and the little spike corn?" He said, "I was concentrated on it. I was looking and looking. The weather got warm. I got hot. I got tired. I got sleepy, and I started plowing out some corn." So he said, "I decided to sit underneath a shade tree and rest a while." He said, "I took a nap. When I woke up," he said, "the clouds were out there, PC. And he said, that was my message. I was to go and preach Christ." The old pastor looked at him, patted him on the shoulder, and said, "Son, that was plow corn." So hopefully sometime today, sometime during this message, I can get it across, not like plowing corn, but somewhere in between preaching and plowing corn. Have you ever woke up, listened to the radio, or all at once a song pops into your head? You have no idea how it got there, but you can't get it out of your head. It just goes on and on. I had one of those in reading the Bible, which I do at night. I go down to my man cave, which is the basement, and I like to read. Of course, with old age comes, you read a while and then you get sleepy. So I got a recliner down there and I sleep like the guy that's supposed to be cultivating. I take a nap and then read some more. But one passage that I read in John, I just couldn't get it out of my head. For some reason, it was talking directly to me. Some of the stuff that I say, some of the stuff that I do, it was sticking right at me. This morning, it was John 21, 18 to 25. We see here, it's just after this scripture takes over, just after Jesus has asked Peter 3 times if he loved him. The third time, Peter's getting a little bit agitated because he asked him 3 times. What Peter didn't realize is he had denied Christ in public 3 times. So he had to admit it 3 times that he loved Jesus. Then Jesus said, "Feed my sheep. Verily, verily, I say unto thee, when thou wast young, thou girdest thyself, and walkest whither thou wouldest. When thou be old, thou shalt stretch forth thy hands, and another shall gird thee, and carry thee whither thou wouldest not." This spake he. Am I doing that? This spake. Evidently I am. Still bothering? This spake he It's getting worse. Is that better? This spake he, signifying by what death he should glorify God. And when he had spoken this, he said unto him, Follow me. Then Peter turned about and saith the disciple who Jesus loved following, seeth the disciple whom Jesus loved following, which also leaned on the breast at supper and said, Lord, which is he that betrayeth thee? Peter, seeing him, said to Jesus, You know I'm a white guy, I can't even keep a beat. I can't jump either. Peter, seeing him, said to Jesus, Lord, and what shall this man do? Jesus said unto him, If I will that he tarry till I come, what is that to thee? Follow me. Then went the saying abroad among the brethren, that the disciple should not die. Yet Jesus said not unto him, He shall not die. But if I will that he tarry till I come, what is that to thee? This is the disciple which testifies to these things and wrote these things. And we know that his testimony is true. Eric, maybe I put it on this side. We got there we go. Thank you, sir. You guys really don't want to hear me, do you? Wow. And if I wasn't nervous enough to start with, I started to think about time wasted. How I've wasted time. Time that I could have spent with the Lord, or time I could have spent preaching, or just asking if they were saved. You know, time goes fast. The summer came. We were glad to see the kids get out of school. Or they were glad. Most of the moms weren't. But the kids were glad to get out of school. We had baseball, softball, some vacations. And then I think the devil don't want you to hear this morning. I only had one other time when I had problems with a microphone, and that was in Ames, and I can't even tell you what I told those folks. We think and we start, and time goes by. Time goes by fast. The summer went by fast. Now we're into football. Kids are back in school. What have we done with our summer? What have I done with my summer? The sad part about it is, I read once where most people will spend more time figuring out a 2-week vacation than what they'll do figuring out where they're going to be for eternity. They spend more time making sure the hotel rooms are in place, air flights, that stuff, than they do with God, with His Word, and in prayer. They spend more time on vacation than a 2 weeks vacation. I started thinking, this thing, I kind of like to move around because a moving target's harder to hit. Maybe Scott set this up. I don't know, did he? I started thinking of myself and the first day of school. I can remember my kindergarten teacher, Jean Swartfager. Some of you folks knew her. She's passed on now. She always told me not to tell everybody that she was my kindergarten teacher, but I do. Then I can remember the first day that my kids went to school. Then I could remember the first day that my grandkids went to school. And now, I just watched the first day when my great-grandkids went to school. Time flies. We don't have that much time. We think we have forever, but we don't. It reminds me of a friend of our family, a gentleman just a little bit older than I. And every time there was a birthday, we would spend time together because the kids had their cell phones. The women talked about cooking and how hard to get the husbands to do something. So we'd just sit and visit. And he told about his time in the service. Coming home from the service, he was married, and they lived in a converted chicken house on a folks' farm for quite a few years. Then they had kids, and then grandkids. And it was like yesterday. Time flew that fast. These little ones in the front row, before you know it, they'll be going off to college. Time flies by. Now, Bob and Mary, they didn't have much, but they had a house. Then it got to the point where they took away Bob's driver's license. It got to be a burden to go out and get him, to bring him where he wanted to go. So pretty soon, like the example of Peter, pretty soon they were dressing him. They were telling him where to go, and they were taking him where they wanted to go, not where he wanted to go. Bob passed away. And being the family knew me, they asked if I would say a few words at his funeral and do a eulogy for him. So we went through, and I talked to his wife, Mary. And as many times as I had the opportunity to ask him, Bob, are you saved? I didn't. So I had to ask his widow. And she looked at me and she said, I don't know. I said, are you saved? She said, I don't know. We occasionally went to this church. One time they sprinkled us with some water. We believed, but I don't know if I'm saved, and I don't know if he was saved. We think we've got all kinds of time. We don't. I think of Ray Heckeroff. He was at our church in the morning. He sat through the sermon. He sat through a congregational meeting after the church. He went to the hallway. We stood and talked. He went to get his car because he always pulled his car up front. And Mildred Alfers, my aunt, would get in and he'd give her a ride home. He walked out to his car. He pulled it around and died. He didn't make it home for dinner. He died right there. Of course, we got him in the narthex of the church. That's where he died. We see Peter doing what we all do. What will this man do? He's pointing the finger at Judas. What will he do? Don't we do that a lot? What will he do? Too often, we and I see the speck in my neighbor's eye, but I can't see the 2x4 in my own. This year when we was on vacation, I seen an article in a Christian newspaper. It's not from John, it's from 1 John. Everyone who loves is born of God. It says the importance of loving others. And I'm going to read the whole article because he wrote it a lot better than I can. Recently, a 12-year-old boy in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, hung himself. Why? Because the next day was his first day at a new school. He was overweight, and he dreaded being taunted by other children. Few things are more painful than shame. One of the greatest kindness we can show others is take away their false shame through love and acceptance. When the disciples met a man who was blind from birth, they asked him, what is the result of his own sins or those of his parents? John 9:2. They weren't concerned that the man needed help or that he'd spent his life in total darkness. No, they just started discussing his shortcomings right in front of him. It's easier to label people than to love them. We label things because we think we know what's inside. I do it, and I think we all do it. We point a finger. We got 4 fingers pointing back at us. Anytime we point something out, anytime we don't help, because we think we know what's inside, and we label people for the same reason. We'd rather debate homosexuality than befriend someone who's gay, condemn divorce than help its victim, argue about abortion than support an orphanage, or gripe about social services that help the poor. Jesus didn't see the blind man as a victim of fate. He saw him as an opportunity waiting to happen. He said to his disciples, "You are looking for someone to blame, instead for what God can do. If you don't love people, you don't love God. Actually, you don't even know him." We need to pray, "Lord, remind me today that the greatest gift I have to give others is your love." When you get serious and begin to pray that way, people will open up to God's help and healing. Another one that says it better than I could, and I don't know how many of you folks are country music fans, but Loretta Lynn had a song out not too long ago, and don't worry, I'm not going to sing it, called "Standing Room Only." It says, "Standing room only, not even room to kneel and pray. Standing room only on the judgment day." Last night I had an awful dream that the end of time had come. The trumpets had been sounded, and life on earth was done. An angel stood 1 foot on land, the other foot on sea. And as I tried to kneel and pray, a voice said unto me, "There's standing room only. It's too late now to pray. There's standing room only. This is the judgment day." People filled each church and churchyard just as far as I could see. I heard the pitiful cry of mercy, and then I realized it was me. I saw the Savior did appear as he split the eastern sky. I saw a tear of joy on a Christian's face, and I heard the sinner's cry. As I tried to touch his hand, when one last people plea, I cried again, have mercy, Lord, on me." I saw a tear come to his eye, and as he turned my soul away, I didn't know him yesterday, he knew me not today. The earth was burning all around, the world wound up in smoke. As the flames came off me, thank God I awoke. Then I got out of bed and got down on my knees, and you should have heard me pray. For in my dream I witnessed God's great judgment day. Standing room only on God's great judgment day. One of the things that I want to leave with you this morning is I can't save you. You can't save me. We have to do it for ourselves. Like Peter worried about Judas. And Jesus said to Peter, "What is it that to thee? Follow thou me."